Hello and welcome to part 2 of these, where we're looking into these verses that Muslims or atheists bring up that might on the outside seem to indicate that Jesus is not peaceful. And so now we're looking at Luke 19:27. And it reads this way: "But those enemies of mine who did not want me to be king over them, bring them here and kill them in front of me." Well, let's see exactly what this means. As now we're pulling the lens out to get the whole picture in the whole chapter. First of all, we need to understand that this is a parable, so it is a teaching to learn from. It is not a direct law or teaching on how to interact with others as the Bible has. So a parable is a story to learn from, and so not conduct that we live by. And anyways, let's read what it says. Actually, I want to get the NLT, the parable of the 10 servants. Okay, the crowd was listening to everything Jesus said, and because he was near Jerusalem, he told them a story to correct the impression that the kingdom of God would begin right away. He said a nobleman was called away to a distant empire to be crowned king and then return. Before he left, he called together 10 of his servants and divided among them 10 pounds of silver, saying, "Invest this for me while I am gone." But his people hated him and sent a delegation after him to say, "We do not want him to be our king." After he was crowned king, he returned and called in the servant to whom he had given the money. He wanted to find out what their profits were. The first servant reported, "Master, I've invested your money and made 10 times the original amount." "Well done," the king exclaimed. "You are a good servant. You have been faithful with the little I entrusted you, so you will be governor over 10 cities as your reward." The next servant reported, "Master, I have invested your money and made 5 times the original amount." "Well done," the king said. "You will be governor over 5 cities." But the third servant brought back only the original amount of money and said, "Master, I hid your money and kept it safe. I was afraid because you are a hard man to deal with, taking what isn't yours and harvesting crops you didn't plant." "You wicked servant," the king roared. Your own words condemn you. If you knew that I am a hard man who takes what isn't mine and harvests crops I didn't plant, why didn't you deposit my money in the bank? At least I could have gotten some interest on it." Then turning to the others standing nearby, the king ordered, "Take the money from the servant and give it to the one who has 10 pounds. "But master," they said, "he already has 10 pounds. "Yes," the king replied, "and to those who use well what they are given, even more will be given. But from those who do nothing, even what little they have will be taken away. And as for these enemies of mine who did not want me to be their king, bring them in and execute them right away, right here in front of me." So, what do we understand from this parable? One is that this is at the end of the world, at the end of time, when Jesus will destroy the wicked. And so these are people that he is judging by the same way that they judge situations. As he says, your own words condemn you. And so if this is something evil for a Muslim to say, well, you have to ask them, don't you also agree that that their God Allah will also judge people at the end of the world and send the wicked to hell? And moreover, if an atheist asks you this, you have to say, well, don't you agree that it's right to judge others in the same manner that they judge you? And so either way, there's no way that anybody could say that this is somehow an immoral or wrong teaching of Christ. And so this isn't just a teaching to go out and kill people who don't accept Jesus as their king, because this is at the end, after all of their life, after all of the blessings God has bestowed upon them, and he is seeing what they did with it. And as we see that the money represents our faith, our trust in God and what God has given us and what we have done with it. Whether we did God's will, or whether we just decided to hide his will and follow things in our own way and not what he wants us to teach and do. The last one is Luke 14 and verse 26. And it says, "If you want to be my disciple, you must hate everyone else by comparison, your father and your mother, wife and children, brothers and sisters, yes, even your own life. Otherwise, you cannot be my disciple." So one might look at this and say, wow, I can't follow this. But really, we need to understand the context and what is going on here. And this is much similar to the verse I gave in Matthew 10:34. Let's read it and see what it says. Starting in its context at verse 25. A large crowd was following Jesus. He turned around and said to them, "If you want to be my disciple, you must hate everyone else by comparison. Your father and mother, wife and children, brothers and sisters, yes, even your own life. Otherwise you cannot be my disciple. And if you do not carry your own cross and follow me, you cannot be my disciple. But don't begin until you count the cost. For who wouldn't begin construction of a building without first calculating the cost to see if there is enough money to finish it? Otherwise you might complete only the foundation before running out of money, and then everyone would laugh at you. Then they would say, there's the person who started that building and couldn't afford to finish it. Or what king would go to war against another king without first sitting down with his counselors to discuss whether his army of 10,000 could defeat the 20,000 soldiers marching against him? And if he can't, he will send a delegation to discuss terms of peace while the enemy is still far away. So you cannot become my disciple without giving up everything you own. Salt is good for seasoning, but if it loses its flavor, how do you make it salty again? Flavorless salt is good neither for the soil nor for the manure pile. It is thrown away. Anyone with ears to hear it should listen and understand. So what he is saying here is that people who want to follow me should not just jump into the Christian boat and follow God. If you're not prepared to do his will and to live a life pleasing and serving to and respectful and honorable to God, you should not follow him. And this is let me just see how much time I have. Okay. And so really it's to count the cost of what it means to follow him. If you're going to claim to be Christian yet live like the devil, well, don't bother saying you're Christian. If people ask you, what is your religion, just say it's none of your business. Because really, people who act this way, and, they wear crosses, they do this, blah, 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 yet they don't act Christ-like, they would actually be doing worse for the cause of the church. So it's better that they just say that they're not Christian rather than say they are. And so he is telling you exactly what it means to follow him. It's that you're not to put others before God. God comes first, and then all of family is second, especially when we understand the context of him talking to a nation who collectively and the majority rejected him. And so, if your parents are going to tell you, well, I can't love you unless you disown Jesus and you don't follow Jesus, you need to understand that. And of course, many Muslims also count this cost, that if they leave Islam, a lot of them are threatened by death, even by their own family members. And so he's warning you that this isn't something that you should take lightly or just jump on the bandwagon about because maybe your country is majority Christian or whatever the case is, the majority of your people in your class or your friends are Christian, that you really have to understand what you're getting into. Because in many cases, you could be killed for your faith. And so, thank you for the time of watching this video, and stay tuned for the coming video. See you guys later. Take care.